The smell hit her first. Not the sharp chemical bite of chlorine she expected, but the sweeter, almost vanilla scent of her mother's hand cream, mixing with the steam rising from a pot of congee on the stove. Maya's fingers gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, knuckles white against the faded laminate, and for a moment the world tilted sideways like she was tumbling through a flip turn. Her mother's voice drifted from somewhere to her left. "The water's nearly boiling over. Maya, are you listening to me?" But Maya wasn't listening. She was staring at her hands. Small hands, with short nails she'd bitten down to the quick, a habit she'd finally broken in her 20s. Her 20s. These weren't the hands of a 35-year-old woman who spent her days filing insurance claims in a gray cubicle. These were the hands of a 14-year-old girl who could still do a butterfly stroke that cut through water like a blade. "Maya," she looked up. Her mother stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, wearing the floral apron she'd donated to Goodwill 12 years ago. No, would donate. Had donated? The timeline fractured in Maya's mind like light through water. "Sorry, Mom." The words came out automatically, muscle memory from a version of this conversation she'd lived through before. The congee bubbled and spat, and Maya watched a grain of rice arc through the air and land on the stovetop with a tiny wet sound that echoed too loudly in her ears. Everything was too loud. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of scales being played on a piano, B-flat major ascending and descending over and over. The same pattern Lily had practiced every morning for 2 years, until the notes had burrowed into Maya's skull like parasites. She'd forgotten that sound, or maybe she'd spent 20 years trying to forget it. "Your father wants to talk to us. Both of you." Her mother turned off the burner, and the sudden silence felt like a held breath. "Go get your sister. We're having a family meeting." Family meeting. The words detonated in Maya's chest. She knew what came next, had lived it, suffered it, carried it like a stone in her gut for 21 years, until a taxi had run a red light on a rainy Tuesday morning and ended the prolonged disappointment that had been her first life. She remembered the hospital lights, the way the young doctor had looked anywhere but at her face when he said there was nothing more they could do. So you can the coldness spreading through her limbs, and then this. The kitchen, the smell of congee, her mother's apron. The date on the wall calendar showed March 15th. The year made her stomach clench. She was 14 again. It was 3 days before the regional qualifiers, where she'd been seated second in the 200-meter butterfly. 3 days before her parents would sit her down and explain, in calm, reasonable voices, why Lily's music education was more important than Maya's hobby. "Maya, are you feeling all right? You're very pale." She forced herself to breathe, to feel the air enter her lungs the way Coach Henderson had taught her. Deep into the belly, hold for 3 counts, release slowly. The technique had served her well in the pool, less so in the cubicle farm where she'd eventually landed. Where the closest she got to swimming was the bottle of chlorine-scented hand sanitizer she kept in her desk drawer, like a talisman from a better life. But that life hadn't happened yet. Wouldn't happen. She wouldn't let it. "I'm fine," Maya said. Her voice sounded strange. Too young, missing the rough edges that years of swallowing disappointment had carved into it. "I'll get Lily." She walked down the hallway, and every step felt like moving through water. Not the clean, clear resistance of a pool, but something thicker, stranger. The floorboards creaked under her feet in a pattern she'd forgotten she knew. There was the spot that moaned when you stepped on it, right outside the bathroom. There was the loose nail that had caught her sock 100 times. The afternoon light fell through the window at the end of the hall in dusty slants, illuminating the photos on the wall. Maya stopped. There she was, frozen in time and silver gelatin. 11 years old, standing on a podium with a gold medal around her neck, chlorinated hair slicked back, grinning so wide her eyes had disappeared into crescents of pure joy. The provincial championships, where she'd beaten her personal record by 3 full seconds and felt, for one perfect moment, like she could fly. Next to it hung a photo of Lily at a piano recital, hands poised over the keys, face serious and concentrated in the way their parents called mature and focused. Maya had always thought she looked miserable. The piano had stopped. In the thick silence, Maya heard her sister's voice muffled through the door. "I don't want to practice anymore today. My fingers hurt," another voice responded. Their father's, a patient but firm. "Just 30 more minutes, Lily Bear. You need to get the Chopin piece perfect for the competition." The registration fee was very expensive. Maya's hand hovered over the doorknob. In her first life, she'd burst in and demanded to know why Lily got to stop practicing when she felt like it, while Maya had to swim laps until her shoulders screamed. The argument had escalated. Their father had said something about commitment and priorities. It had been the beginning of the end. This time, she knocked. The door opened to reveal her father, still in his work clothes, polyester slacks and a button-down shirt with a coffee stain near the collar that her mother would scrub at later, unsuccessfully. He looked tired. He'd always looked tired, carrying the weight of supporting a family of 4 on a postal worker's salary. But Maya had been too young to see it the first time around. "Maya, good. Come in, both of you. We need to discuss something important." The room was exactly as she remembered. The upright piano her parents had bought used from a church, its wood veneer peeling near the pedals, the single window overlooking the parking lot, Lily sitting on the bench with her sheet music spread around her like fallen leaves, her small fingers red at the tips from hours of practice. Lily looked up, and Maya's breath caught. Her sister was so young. Just 12, with baby fat still rounding her cheeks, hair in 2 braids tied with ribbons their grandmother had sent from Taiwan. In Maya's memories, Lily was always older, 16 and resentful, 20 and drunk at their cousin's wedding. 28, and married to a man who worked in finance and looked at her like she was an expensive vase he'd bought but didn't quite know where to display. But this Lily, this 12-year-old Lily, just looked exhausted. "Come sit down, girls." Their father gestured to the small sofa wedged against one wall. Maya sat, and the springs pressed into her legs in a familiar, uncomfortable way. Lily climbed up next to her, bringing the scent of rosin and the faint, sour smell of nervous sweat. Their mother appeared in the doorway, drying her hands on her apron. The family assembled just as they had before, just as Maya had replayed in her mind 1,000 times during boring meetings and sleepless nights. "We want to talk to you about the next few months," their father began. He sat on the piano bench, and it creaked under his weight. "Your mother and I have been discussing finances, and we need to make some decisions about activities." Maya watched her younger self respond, or rather watched where she should respond, the space she should fill with teenage indignation. But she stayed silent, and the silence stretched like taffy. "Lily has been invited to attend the Chen Academy Intensive Summer Program," their mother said, her voice carefully bright. "It's a wonderful opportunity. The teacher there has trained students who went on to Juilliard. Even Curtis. It costs $6,000. Their father added, and the number landed in the room like a stone in still water. "For 8 weeks. In the parking lot outside, a car alarm went off, then stopped. Someone laughed, the sound carrying through the thin walls of their apartment building. Normal sounds. The world continuing its mundane rotation while Maya's carefully constructed past crumbled like wet sand. "We're very proud of both of you," their mother continued. "Maya, your coach says you have real talent. He thinks with the right training, you could get a college scholarship. Could have gotten," Maya thought. In that other life, the one that felt simultaneously like yesterday and 1,000 years ago, she'd never gone to college on a swimming scholarship. She'd gone to community college, transferred to a state school, graduated with a degree in business administration, and a deep, bone-tired resignation that this was just how life worked for people like her. "But Lily's opportunity is time-sensitive," their father said. "She's at the perfect age for intensive training. The instructor said she has a gift." Lily shifted beside her, and Maya felt the movement like an earthquake. Her sister's small hand gripped the edge of the sofa cushion, knuckles white with tension. "We can't afford both right now," their mother said softly. "Your swimming club fees are $800 a year, and if you qualify for regionals, there's travel, hotels, the meet fees." "I qualify," Maya said. Her voice came out harder than she intended, sharp as a knife edge. "I will qualify." Her parents exchanged a look, the kind of look that spoke volumes in the language parents develop after years of marriage and child-rearing. It said, "See? We knew she'd be difficult about this." "We know you're good, sweetheart," her father said. "But Lily has a chance at something really special here, something that could change her whole life." The bitter irony of it tasted like chlorine on Maya's tongue. So in her previous life, she'd screamed at them, called them unfair, accused them of favoritism, slammed doors, and cried into her pillow until her head ached. And in the end, she'd given up anyway, because what choice did a 14-year-old girl have? She'd quit the team, watched her muscles soften, felt her heart grow hard. Lily had gone to the intensive program. She'd come back better technically, more polished, and somehow less alive. She'd practiced 6 hours a day through high school, won competitions, got into a decent music school on partial scholarship. She'd graduated and worked as a piano teacher, giving lessons to bored children in her apartment, until gradually even that had faded away, and the piano had become just another piece of furniture gathering dust. "What do you think, Lily?" Maya asked, turning to her sister. Oh, everyone froze. It was not the question anyone expected. Lily's eyes went wide. "What do I think? Do you want to go to the summer intensive?" Maya, their mother started, but Maya held up a hand. "I'm asking Lily." Her sister's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. In 12 years of life, perhaps no one had ever asked her what she actually wanted. She was the talented one, the gifted one, the one with the opportunity that mustn't be wasted. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know. Do you like playing piano?" Maya pressed. She knew she was detonating the careful script her parents had prepared, the reasonable explanation they'd rehearsed. "Good. Let it detonate." "Of course she likes it," their father said. "She practices every day." "I practice because you tell me to," Lily said. So quietly Maya almost missed it. The words hung in the air like smoke. Their mother's hand went to her throat, fingertips pressing against the hollow there as if she could push the words back down, unmake them. "Lily Bear, you don't mean that," their father said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "I'm tired," Lily said, louder now. "My hands hurt all the time. I dream about scales. Last week I cried during my lesson because I couldn't get the trills right in the Chopin, and Miss Jung said if I couldn't commit, I shouldn't waste her time." She looked at her hands like they belonged to someone else. "I'm 12. I just want to be 12. Maya felt something crack open in her chest. Not painful, but like ice breaking in spring, releasing something that had been frozen for too long. In her first life, she'd been so consumed by her own resentment that she'd never seen this, never looked closely enough at her sister to notice the weight she was carrying. "Then don't go," Maya heard herself say. "Maya," her mother's voice was sharp, "this is not your decision to make." "It's not yours either." Maya stood up and her legs felt strong beneath her, muscles she'd forgotten she had. "It's Lily's life, her hands, her time, her choice." "Your children," their father said. "You don't understand. I understand that you're spending money you don't have on something Lily doesn't even want." The words came out in a rush, 20 years of unspoken anger finally finding voice. "I understand that you're so busy planning her future that you forgot to ask if it's a future she wants to live." The silence that followed felt like the moment before a starter pistol fires. Everything suspended, balanced on the edge of action. "And what about you?" her mother asked finally. "I suppose you think your swimming is more important?" Maya took a breath. She could feel the ghost of water against her skin, the remembered sensation of a perfect dive. The launch, the flight, the entry so clean it barely made a splash. The way the world went quiet when she was underwater, all the noise and expectation muffled to a distant hum. The way her body knew exactly what to do, each muscle firing in perfect sequence, poetry written in chlorine in motion. "I think," she said carefully, "idea that maybe we should all get to choose what we love." Her father stood up, and for a moment she was afraid he would yell. But he just looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted like light moving across water. "When did you grow up?" he asked quietly. "Never," she wanted to say. "Not in the life you remember. I'm 35 and 14 and every age in between. I grew up in a version of now that hasn't happened yet, that I'm going to make sure never happens." But what she said was, "I have regionals in 3 days. I need to train." She walked out of the room, her heart hammering against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Behind her, she heard her mother's voice, urgent and low, starting to explain or argue or salvage the conversation. She heard Lily's voice too, stronger now. He's saying something Maya couldn't quite make out. But Maya was already moving down the hallway, past the photos of who they used to be, toward her room and the duffel bag she knew was hanging on the back of her door, still smelling faintly of chlorine and possibility. The thing about second chances, Maya thought, is that they don't change the past. They only give you the opportunity to change the future. And the future, her future, was waiting at the bottom of a pool, in the burning of her lungs and the strength of her legs, and the simple, perfect clarity of knowing exactly where she was going. She had 3 days to prepare, 3 days to be faster than she'd ever been, 3 days to be ready to fly. The water was cold at 5 in the morning. Maya stood at the edge of the pool, toes curled over the lip of the starting block, and watched the surface ripple under the ventilation system's breath. The natatorium was nearly empty. Just her, Coach Henderson reviewing something on his clipboard, and 2 other swimmers from the senior group doing warm-up laps in the far lanes. Their strokes sent echoes bouncing off the high ceiling, a rhythmic splash and breathe that was as close to music as Maya ever needed. "You're early," Coach Henderson said, not looking up from his notes. He was a tall man, lean in the way of former swimmers, with sun-weathered skin and chlorine-bleached hair going gray at the temples. In Maya's first life, she'd never told him goodbye. She'd just stopped showing up, and after a few weeks of unreturned calls, he'd stopped trying to reach her. She wondered if he'd thought about her sometimes. If he'd wondered what happened to the girl who'd loved swimming the way some people loved breathing. "Couldn't sleep," Maya said, which was true. She'd lain awake in her childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling, feeling the wrongness and rightness of being 14 again warring in her chest. Her body was 14, but her mind knew how to fill out tax forms and what heartbreak tasted like and the exact shade of fluorescent lighting that could drain all the life from a Tuesday afternoon. Nervous about Saturday? Saturday, the regional qualifiers. In her first life, she'd been seeded second, and she'd swum well. Not perfectly, but well enough to place third and earn a spot at provincials. Then her parents had told her about Lily's summer program, and she'd never gotten the chance to compete again. No, Maya said. Then, more honestly, maybe a little. Coach Henderson finally looked up. He studied her with eyes that had seen 1,000 young swimmers come and go, most of them burning bright and brief before the demands of school or money or simple loss of interest pulled them away. "Your times have been good. Better than good. If you can replicate what you did at practice on Tuesday, you'll qualify easily." Tuesday's practice. Maya had swum the 200 fly in 2, 18.3, a personal best by nearly 2 seconds. She remembered Coach Henderson's surprise, the way he'd made her swim it again to verify the time. The second swim had been even faster. 2:17.8. What he didn't know, what she could never tell him, was that she'd been swimming with the muscle memory of 2 lifetimes. Her 14-year-old body was strong and flexible in ways her 35-year-old body had never been, but it was guided by the knowledge of hundreds of swims she hadn't yet completed in this timeline. She knew exactly how to streamline her turns, how to time her breathing, where she could push, and where she needed to conserve energy. It was cheating in a way. But then again, she'd already paid the price for this knowledge with 21 years of regret. "Can I ask you something?" Maya heard herself say. "Shoot. Do you think swimming is worth it? Like, really worth it?" Coach Henderson set down his clipboard. In the pool, one of the senior swimmers executed a flip turn, the sound sharp and clean. Worth what? Sacrificing for? Oh, choosing over other things. She couldn't quite bring herself to say choosing over family, or choosing over being a good daughter. He was quiet for a long moment, then, "I had a scholarship to UC Berkeley. Full ride, swimming, and school completely paid for. My parents wanted me to stay home, help run the family business. My father had a heart attack my sophomore year of high school, and the restaurant was struggling." He picked up a pole buoy from the deck, turned it over in his hands. "I went anyway, left for California 3 weeks after graduation. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 years. Maya waited. The ventilation system hummed. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. "I don't regret it," he said finally. "I regret how I did it. I could have been kinder, could have helped them find other solutions before I left. But I don't regret going, because if I hadn't, I would have spent my whole life wondering what if." He looked at her. "Is someone asking you to give this up?" The question was so direct it nearly stole her breath. "Maybe," she said. "Probably. And if you give it up, will you regret it?" She knew the answer, had lived the answer. "Yes. Then don't." He said it simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. Don't give it up. Find another way. There's always another way, even when you can't see it yet. In her first life, she'd been too young to ask the question, too young to push back, to argue, to insist on her own path. She'd accepted her parents' decision because she'd believed, somewhere deep down, that their judgment was better than hers, that they knew what was best even when it felt like drowning. But she wasn't that young anymore. Not really. "Okay," Maya said. "I won't." "Good." Coach Henderson pointed to the water. "Now get in and show me why you're going to make me look like a genius on Saturday." Maya dove in, and the cold was a shock and a baptism and a homecoming all at once. The water closed over her head, muffling the world to a distant hum. She pulled into her first stroke, and her body remembered, would always remember, the exact angle to catch the water, the precise rotation of her hips, the rhythm that was as natural as a heartbeat. This, she thought as she surfaced for her first breath, this is what I choose. The workout was brutal. Coach Henderson had her swim a pyramid set, 50 meters, then 100, 200, 400, 200, 100, 50, all butterfly, with only 30 seconds rest between each one. By the 400, her shoulders were screaming and her lungs felt like they might burst. But she pushed through, drawing on reserves of determination she'd built up over 21 years of corporate monotony and quiet desperation. When she finally finished, gasping at the wall, Coach Henderson was grinning. 2:16.9 on that last 200. Maya, if you can hold that on Saturday, you're not just going to qualify. You're going to win. Win. The word echoed in her head as she pulled herself out of the pool, water streaming from her suit, her muscles trembling with exhaustion. In her first life, she'd never won at regionals, never had the chance. But now she had the knowledge and the hunger and the desperate, burning need to prove that the sacrifice had been worth it, even if the only person she was proving it to was herself. She showered quickly in the locker room, the hot water sluicing chlorine from her skin and hair. Her reflection in the steamy mirror looked strange, familiar but wrong, like a photograph from a life she'd only half lived. There was her face, rounder with youth, without the fine lines that had started to appear around her eyes in her 30s. There was her body, lean and strong instead of soft from years of desk work, but her eyes looked older than they should, tired in a way that sleep wouldn't fix. "Hey, Maya." She turned to find Sarah Kim, one of the senior swimmers, standing in the doorway to the shower area. Sarah was 17, a butterflyer like Maya, with college recruiters already circling. In Maya's first life, they'd barely known each other. Sarah had been too far above her in skill level and age for real friendship. But now, armed with an adult's perspective, Maya could see past the cool, senior veneer to the nervous kid underneath. "Yeah, that was some insane swimming out there. Coach made us stop and watch your 400. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, and there was something in her expression that might have been respect, or might have been calculation. "You training for something specific. Regionals on Saturday." "Right, yeah, you're like, what, a sophomore? Freshman?" The word felt strange on her tongue. She'd been a freshman at community college in that other life, struggling through required English classes while working 30 hours a week at a coffee shop. "Damn." Sarah shook her head. "When I was a freshman, I was still figuring out how to do a flip turn without getting water up my nose." You're going to be scary good by the time you're my age." "If I make it to your age," Maya thought. "If I don't let them take this away from me again." Out loud, she said, "Thanks." "You going to state if you qualify?" "Yeah, and nationals if I can." Sarah's eyebrows rose. "Confident. I like it." She pushed off the doorframe. "Well, good luck on Saturday. Try not to make the rest of us look too bad." After she left, Maya finished dressing slowly, pulling on jeans and a sweatshirt that smelled like fabric softener and home. Her hair hung in wet ropes down her back. She'd need to braid it before school, but for now she just let it drip, darkening the shoulders of her sweatshirt. The clock on the wall showed 6:47 a.m. She had just enough time to get home, change into her school uniform, and catch the bus. The same routine she'd followed in her first life, except then she'd been counting down the days until she could quit swimming and sleep in, not knowing that sleep, real, deep, untroubled sleep, would become a luxury she'd never quite recapture. Outside, the March morning was gray and damp, threatening rain. Maya unlocked her bike from the rack and started pedaling toward home, her legs still heavy from the workout. The streets were beginning to wake up. Delivery trucks rumbling past, early commuters hunched over their steering wheels, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on 5th Street mixing with exhaust and the green scent of wet pavement. She'd forgotten this commute. Or maybe she'd tried to forget it, along with everything else from that year, but now, to pedaling through the familiar streets with her muscles burning and her skin still tingling from chlorine, she felt something unexpected. Gratitude. She was 14 again. She had her strength back, her speed, her chance. The future was unwritten, or at least being rewritten with every choice she made. Lily didn't have to sacrifice herself to music she didn't love. Maya didn't have to sacrifice herself to a life of what-ifs and quiet resentment. They could both choose something different, if Maya could just figure out how to make it work. Her parents were already up when she got home, her father reading the newspaper at the kitchen table while her mother packed lunches in the kitchenette. The morning routine, unchanged by time or tragedy or cosmic resets. Some things apparently were constant. "You're up early," her mother observed, not looking up from the sandwich she was assembling. Turkey and cheese, the same thing Maya had eaten for lunch every day of freshman year until the smell of processed meat had made her want to gag. Morning practice. Her father glanced up from the sports section. "Did you think about what we discussed yesterday?" The words were careful, diplomatic, as if they hadn't asked her to choose between her dreams and her sister's, as if it was a simple matter of scheduling and priorities, rather than a fundamental question of who she was allowed to become. "I did," Maya said. She poured herself a glass of water, drank it down. Her throat was still scratchy from chlorine. "I'm not quitting swimming." Her mother's hand stilled on the sandwich. "Maya, let me finish." She set down the glass carefully, precisely, but buying herself a moment to find the right words. In her first life, she'd argued from emotion, from a teenager's sense of injustice, but she was 35 now, even if her birth certificate disagreed. She knew how to make a case. "I know money is tight. I know Lily's intensive program is expensive, but there are other options." "We've looked into financial aid," her father said. "The academy doesn't offer much." "I'm not talking about financial aid for Lily. I'm talking about me finding ways to pay for my own swimming." Her parents exchanged that look again, the one that said they were dealing with a child who didn't understand how the world worked. It made something hot and angry flare in Maya's chest. "Sweetheart, you're 14, her mother said gently. "You can't get a real job, and even if you could, swimming fees are more than you could make babysitting. Coach Henderson told me yesterday that if I qualify for provincials, there are grants available for athletes from low-income families." This was true. She'd learned about them in her first life, 3 weeks too late to apply. "And the club has a work-study program. I can help clean the pool, organize equipment, assist with the younger kids' classes. That would cover most of my fees." She watched her father's expression shift, surprise warring with something that might have been respect. "And the travel?" he asked. "Hotels, food, entry fees for competitions. I'll fundraise, lots of athletes do it. Car washes, bake sales, sponsorships from local businesses." She was making it up as she went along, pulling from half-remembered articles she'd read online in her previous life, from stories of other athletes who'd had to scrape and claw for their dreams. "I'll figure it out, but I'm not quitting." "It's not just about the money," her mother said quietly. "It's about priorities, about being realistic. You're talented, Maya, but the chances of actually making a career out of swimming, I don't care about making a career out of it." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I care about doing something I love for as long as I can. Isn't that enough? Does everything have to be about career prospects and return on investment?" The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Lily's alarm clock going off down the hall. Finally, her father spoke. "What about your sister?" "What about her?" Maya met his eyes. "Did you ask her if she actually wants to go to this intensive program? Or did you just assume?" "Of course she wants to go," her mother said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "She's been working toward this for years. You've been working toward it, you and Dad and her piano teacher. But has anyone asked Lily what she wants?" Maya grabbed her backpack from where she dropped it by the door. "Ask her, really ask her. You might be surprised by what she says." She left before they could respond, taking the stairs to her room 2 at a time. Behind her, she heard her parents' voices rise in urgent, hushed conversation. Good. Let them talk, let them question, let them realize that their children were not projects to be managed, but people with their own desires and dreams and the right to choose their own paths. Her room was exactly as she remembered it. The single bed with its worn blue comforter, the desk piled with textbooks and notebooks, the bulletin board covered in swim meet ribbons and photos of her relay team. On her nightstand sat a framed photo of her and Lily from 2 summers ago, both of them grinning at the camera, Maya's arms slung around her sister's shoulders. They'd looked happy. Had they been happy? Maya couldn't remember. So much of her first life had been tinted by the resentment that came after, coloring every memory in shades of bitterness. She changed quickly into her school uniform, white blouse, navy skirt, the blazer with the school crest that she'd always thought made her look like she was playing dress-up as a private school student. Her wet hair left damp patches on the fabric. She braided it with practiced efficiency, muscle memory from 2 lifetimes guiding her fingers. A soft knock at her door. "Maya," Lily's voice, small and hesitant. "Come in." Her sister slipped into the room, still in her pajamas, her hair sticking up on one side from sleep. She looked younger than 12, almost childlike in her uncertainty. "Did you mean it?" Lily asked. "What you said yesterday about me choosing?" Maya sat on the edge of her bed, patted the space beside her. Lily climbed up, tucking her feet under her, and for a moment they were just 2 sisters in the early morning light, the way they'd been 100 times before the world got complicated. "Yeah," Maya said. "I meant it. But the intensive program, it's such a good opportunity. Everyone keeps saying so." "Everyone isn't the one who has to practice 6 hours a day." Maya looked at her sister. Really looked at her. "Do you like playing piano, Lily?" Lily bit her lip. "I used to, when I was little, before it got serious. I liked making up songs and just playing around. But now it's all about technique, and competitions, and being perfect all the time. And Her voice cracked. "I don't feel anything when I play anymore. It's just notes, just tasks to complete." Maya's heart ached for her sister, for this small girl carrying the weight of their parents' dreams like stones in her pockets. In her first life, Maya had been so consumed by her own pain that she'd never seen Lily's, never recognized that they were both drowning, just in different ways. "Then don't go," Maya said simply, "but Mom and Dad are trying to do what they think is best. But they're not the ones who have to live your life." Maya took her sister's hand. "You are, and if piano doesn't make you happy, you don't have to do it. Not the way they want you to." "What if I'm not good at anything else?" "Then you'll find out. That's what being 12 is for. Trying things, failing at things, figuring out who you are." Maya smiled. "You're allowed to be bad at stuff, Lily. You're allowed to quit things that make you miserable. That's not giving up. That's just being smart enough to know when something isn't right for you." Lily was quiet for a long moment, her small hand warm in Maya's. Outside, a garbage truck rumbled past, its hydraulic brakes hissing. "I think I want to try volleyball," Lily said finally, so quietly Maya almost missed it. "There's a club team at the rec center. My friend Jessica plays, and she's always talking about how fun it is." "Oh, but I never asked Mom and Dad because I knew they'd say I didn't have time." Volleyball. Maya felt a strange jolt of recognition. In her first life, Lily had never mentioned volleyball, had never mentioned wanting to do anything except get through her piano practice and her homework and the endless cycle of preparation for a future she hadn't chosen. But maybe in this new timeline, this better timeline, there was room for discovery. "Then ask them," Maya said. "The worst they can say is no." "They'll be disappointed. Maybe, but they'll get over it." Maya squeezed her sister's hand. "And anyway, isn't it better to disappoint them by being honest than to make yourself miserable trying to be what they want?" Lily leaned against Maya's shoulder, and Maya wrapped an arm around her, holding her close. They sat like that as the morning light strengthened. 2 girls at the edge of different futures, the silence between them comfortable and understood. Finally, Lily pulled away. "I should get ready for school." "Yeah, me too." At the door, Lily paused. "Maya, thank you for asking me what I wanted. No one ever does that." After she left, Maya sat alone in her room, staring at the ribbons on her bulletin board. Blue for first place, red for second, white for third. Little pieces of colored fabric that represented hours of work, of pain, of joy so pure it had felt like flying. She hadn't just come back for herself, she realized. She'd come back for Lily too, for both of them, for the chance to break the pattern that would have trapped them both in lives they didn't choose. The bus would be here in 15 minutes. Maya grabbed her backpack. I checked to make sure she had her homework, her lunch, her physics textbook. The mundane rituals of being 14, except nothing about this was mundane anymore. Everything was charged with the weight of knowledge, the burden and gift of getting to do it over. She would go to school. She would sit through classes she'd already passed once. She would smile at jokes she'd already heard and solve equations whose answers she already knew. And then she would go back to the pool and swim until her body remembered what her mind had never forgotten, that she was fast, that she was strong, that she deserved to chase her dreams as much as anyone, that this time she wouldn't let anyone take them away. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of early spring day that made promises it wouldn't necessarily keep. Maya woke at 4:30 a.m., her body humming with nervous energy. The regional qualifiers started at 9, but Coach Henderson had told them to arrive by 7 for warm-ups and a team meeting. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the pool, felt the water, heard the starter's buzzer. In her first life, she'd swum well at regionals, but not perfectly. Good enough for 3rd place, not good enough to win. This time would be different. This time, she had something the other swimmers didn't, the future, encoded in muscle memory and determination. Her parents were still asleep when she crept into the kitchen, but she found a note on the counter in her mother's handwriting. "Good luck today. We'll be there to watch. Love, Mom and Dad." They were coming. A knot of tension Maya hadn't known she was carrying loosened slightly in her chest. In her first life, they'd been there too, had watched her swim and place 3rd, and told her they were proud, all while knowing they were about to ask her to quit. The memory felt like swallowing glass. But this wasn't that life. She'd made sure of it. She ate a light breakfast, banana, toast with peanut butter, water, and packed her swim bag with methodical precision. Suite, cap, goggles, towel, warm-up clothes, extra hair ties, lucky playlist on her phone. The rituals that athletes everywhere understood. The small acts of control in a situation where so much was beyond your control. Her phone buzzed. A text from Coach Henderson. "Ready to fly?" She typed back, "Born ready." The natatorium where regionals was being held was across town, a sleek facility with an Olympic-sized pool and stadium seating for 1,000 spectators. Maya's hands were steady on her bike handlebars as she pedaled through the quiet streets, but her heart was beating triple time, adrenaline singing in her veins. The parking lot was already filling up when she arrived. Swimmers from a dozen clubs, coaches with their clipboards and stopwatches, parents carrying folding chairs and cameras. The air smelled like chlorine and nerves and the particular energy that came from hundreds of people all focused on the same thing, being fast. "Maya, over here!" She turned to find her teammate Jessica Tran waving from near the entrance, already in her warm-up jacket. Jessica was a backstroker, a year older than Maya, with a laugh that could cut through any tension. In Maya's first life, they'd been friendly but not close. Maya made a mental note to change that. "You look way too calm for someone about to swim the most important race of her life," Jessica said as Maya locked up her bike. "I'm freaking out on the inside," Maya admitted. "Good. Channel that into your swim." Jessica slung an arm around her shoulders. "Coach is already here doing his pre-meet meditation thing in the team area. We should probably go find him before he achieves enlightenment and forgets why we're here." The team area was controlled chaos, swimmers stretching, adjusting goggles, listening to music with expressions of intense concentration. Coach Henderson was indeed meditating, or at least sitting very still with his eyes closed, but he opened them when Maya and Jessica approached. "There's my butterfly," he said, standing up. "How are you feeling?" "Good." "Ready?" He studied her with those sharp coach's eyes that saw everything. "Your parents coming?" "They said they would." "Good." He pulled out his meet schedule, already marked up with highlights and notes. "You're in heat 3 of the 200 fly, which should be the fastest heat. That's good. Better competition means faster times. Your preliminary is at 9:47. If you make finals, that's at 2:15. He looked at her. "Any questions?" "Just one." Maya took a breath. "What's the qualifying time for provincials?" 19.0 for your age group. She could hit that. Had already hit it in practice, but she wanted more than just qualifying. She wanted to prove something. To herself, to her parents, to the ghost of her first life that had settled for so much less than she was capable of. "I'm gonna win," she said. Coach Henderson didn't smile, but something in his expression warmed. "Then let's make it happen." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of warm-ups and waiting. Maya swam easy laps to loosen her muscles, did her stretching routine, put put in her headphones and let the familiar beat of her race playlist drown out the chatter around her. Other swimmers came and went. Some looked confident, others nervous. A girl from North Valley threw up in the bathroom. Someone's goggles broke, and they had a minor meltdown until a teammate lent them a spare. All the small dramas of a swim meet, the ordinary anxiety of athletes about to test themselves against the water and the clock. At 9:30, Maya's heat was called to the ready room. She walked there on shaking legs, her teammates calling out encouragement that sounded distant and muffled, like she was already underwater. 7 other girls sat in the plastic chairs, each lost in her own pre-race ritual. Maya recognized a few of them from previous meets. Angela Chen from Riverside, who'd beaten her at state last year. Emma Rodriguez from Central Valley, who was seated first, a girl she didn't know from a club she'd never heard of. In her first life, Emma had won this race with a time of 2:16.3. Maya had come in third at 2:18.7. This time would be different. The official called them to the pool deck. Maya walked out and was hit by a wall of noise. Cheers, whistles, the announcer's voice echoing off the high ceiling. The bleachers were packed. She scanned them quickly, found her parents in the third row, her mother waving, Lily sitting between them with a homemade sign that said, "Go Maya!" in glittery letters. They'd come. All of them. Something in Maya's chest cracked open, spilling warmth through her veins. "Swimmers, take your marks." She climbed onto the starting block. The pool stretched out before her, 50 meters of blue possibility. She'd swum this race hundreds of times in 2 lifetimes. She knew every stroke, every breath, every moment where she could push and where she needed to hold back. The electronic tone sounded. One long beep. "Take your mark." Maya bent into her starting position, fingers curled over the edge of the block, body coiled like a spring. She thought of all the mornings she'd woken up at dawn to train, all the afternoons spent in the pool instead of with friends, all the sacrifices made and the ones she'd refused to make this time. She thought of Lily, who would come find her later with news that she'd told their parents she wanted to quit piano and try volleyball instead, who would spend the next 4 years discovering that she loved sports, not for the competition or the glory, but for the joy of movement, for the feeling of her body doing exactly what she asked it to do. She thought of her first life, the gray years in the gray office, the persistent ache of wondering what if. Not this time. The buzzer sounded. Maya launched herself into the air, arms stretching forward, body arcing in a perfect curve. She entered the water with barely a splash, the cold shocking her system into focus. Pull, breathe, kick. The rhythm came automatically, her body moving through the sequence it had perfected across 2 lifetimes. First 50 meters, smooth and controlled, establishing her pace. She surfaced at the wall just ahead of Emma Rodriguez, executed a perfect flip turn. Second 50, time to push. She increased her tempo, each stroke pulling her forward with more power. Her lungs started to burn, but she welcomed the pain. Pain meant she was working, meant she was alive, meant she was here and now and choosing this. Third 50, the hard part, where bodies started to tire and form broke down, but Maya had trained for this. She focused on her technique. High elbows, strong kick, breathing every other stroke to maintain speed. The water rushed past her, and she felt powerful, invincible, like she could swim forever. Final 50, everything she had left poured into these last meters. Her shoulders screamed. Her lungs demanded more oxygen than she could give them. But she didn't slow down. She couldn't. This was what she'd come back for, this feeling of absolute certainty of knowing exactly who she was and what she was meant to do. The wall appeared beneath her. She reached for it with everything she had, fingers stretching, touching. Done. Maya surfaced, gasping, and looked at the scoreboard. Lane 4, Chen, Maya. 2:14.8 first place. Not just qualified, not just good enough. First. The noise from the crowd hit her like a wave, but she barely heard it over the roaring in her ears. 2:14.8. She'd beaten her personal best by nearly 4 seconds. She'd beaten the girl who won this race in her first life by more than a second. She'd won. Coach Henderson was at the edge of the pool, hand extended to help her out. His face was split in the biggest grin she'd ever seen on him. "I knew you had it in you," he was saying. Or maybe shouting. She couldn't quite tell over the ringing in her ears. "That was incredible, Maya. Just incredible." Her teammates swarmed her, all of them talking at once. But Maya's eyes were on the bleachers. on her family. Her mother had her hands over her mouth. Her father was standing, clapping with the kind of enthusiasm he usually reserved for Lily's recitals. And Lily was jumping up and down, waving the glittery sign, her face shining with pure, uncomplicated joy. They were proud, not of the potential they saw in her, not of the investment they'd made, but of her, of what she'd done, what she'd chosen, who she'd decided to become. The feeling was overwhelming. Maya felt tears prick her eyes and blink them away quickly. She couldn't cry. Not here, not now. So not when she was standing on the edge of everything she'd dreamed of for 21 years. Later, after finals, where she won again, this time with a 2.14.2, after the medal ceremony, gold, heavy, and cold around her neck, after the team photos and the congratulations from swimmers she barely knew, Maya found her family waiting by the exit. Her mother pulled her into a hug that smelled like her childhood, vanilla hand cream, and the detergent she used on all their clothes. "I'm sorry," she said into Maya's chlorine-soaked hair. "We were wrong about asking you to quit. Your father and I talked, and we were wrong." "We should have asked what you wanted," her father added. He put a hand on her shoulder, squeezed gently. "We got so caught up in trying to provide opportunities that we forgot you're the one who has to live with the choices." "We're proud of you, Maya. So proud." Lily hugged her next, fierce and tight. "You were so fast," she said. "Like a dolphin or something, or a really fast fish. Do fish have genders? Are dolphins fish? Anyway, you were amazing." Maya laughed, the sound surprising her with its genuineness. "Thanks, Lil." "I told them," Lily said, pulling back to look at Maya with shining eyes. "About volleyball, about wanting to quit piano. Well, not quit completely, but just do it for fun instead of competitions and stuff. And they said, okay. Well, Mom cried a little first, but then they said, okay." "That's great," Maya said, and meant it. They walked to the parking lot together, the gold medal bumping against Maya's chest with each step. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the evening was warm enough that Maya didn't need her jacket. Spring was coming, with all its promises and possibilities. "We were thinking," her mother said as they reached the car, "that maybe we could reallocate the money we were saving for Lily's intensive. Use some of it for your swimming expenses, some for Lily's volleyball, and save the rest. Does that sound fair?" Fair. The word seemed insufficient for what they were offering. Not just money, but recognition, validation, the simple acknowledgement that both daughters deserved support for their dreams. "Yeah," Maya said. "That sounds fair." Her father unlocked the car and they all piled in, Lily chattering about the meet and the other swimmers and how cool it looked when everyone dove in at once. Maya let the words wash over her, watching the familiar streets slide past as they drove home. Everything looked the same as it had that morning. The bakery on 5th, the park where she used to play as a child, the apartment building where they lived with its faded paint and crowded parking lot. But everything was different, too. The future had shifted, reset, been given a second chance to unfold in a better way. Later that night, lying in bed with her gold medal hanging on her bulletin board and her muscles aching pleasantly from the day's exertion, Maya pulled out her phone and Googled Olympic qualifying times women's 200m butterfly. The numbers glowed on her screen, impossible and inevitable all at once. She was 14. She had 4 years until the next Olympics, 8 until the one after that. She had time, so much time to get faster, to get better, to become the swimmer she'd never gotten the chance to be in her first life. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. But as she closed her eyes and felt sleep pulling at her, Maya smiled. She'd been given a second chance, a cosmic do-over, and she was going to make it count. Not just for herself, but for Lily too. For both of them, for all the versions of themselves they'd never gotten to be the first time around. The months after regionals passed in a blur of training and school and the slow, careful reconstruction of family dynamics. Maya qualified for provincials, then nationals. She didn't win nationals. That honor went to a 17-year-old from Quebec with arms like wings and a hatred of losing that matched Maya's own, but she placed 4th, high enough to earn a spot on the junior national development team. The training camps were intense. 3 weeks each summer at a facility in Calgary with Olympic-caliber coaches and equipment that made her local pool look like a bathtub. Maya soaked up every moment of it, learning new techniques, pushing her body to new limits, training alongside other swimmers who shared her obsession with being fast. Lily, meanwhile, discovered that she loved volleyball with a passion that surprised everyone, especially herself. She was good at it too. Not prodigy level the way their parents had hoped she'd be at piano, but solidly skilled, with a killer serve and a knack for reading the other team's plays. She joined the club team at the rec center, made friends, came home with bruised knees, and a smile that reached her eyes. The piano stayed in her room, but now it was for fun. She'd play sometimes in the evenings, picking out melodies by ear, composing simple songs that had no technical perfection but plenty of heart. Their parents learned to appreciate it. This version of their younger daughter who was happy instead of accomplished, joyful instead of impressive. School was its own kind of challenge. Maya had to pretend to learn material she'd already covered once, had to fake enthusiasm for lessons that felt like reruns of a show she'd never liked the first time. But she made it work, maintained decent grades, stayed just under the radar of being too smart or too different. She made new friends too, or rather made better choices about friendships. Jessica Tran became her closest friend on the swim team, the kind of friend who would show up at her door at midnight with ice cream when Maya was having a crisis, and who understood the particular loneliness of early morning practices and the boredom of endless laps. And slowly, carefully, Maya started to let go of her first life. It was harder than she'd expected. Sometimes she'd catch herself about to reference an event that hadn't happened yet, or she'd feel a jolt of confusion when she saw someone who should be older, or different, or gone. The memories sat in her head like a parallel timeline, a ghost life that only she could remember. But as the months turned into years, as she got faster and stronger and more certain of the path she was on, the weight of those memories began to lighten. They were still there, would always be there, but they no longer felt like chains. They felt like lessons, like cautionary tales, like proof that choices mattered and second chances were gifts too precious to waste. By her junior year of high school, Maya was ranked third in the nation for her age group in the 200 butterfly. College recruiters were calling Stanford, Cal, Texas, Michigan, programs with Olympic-level coaching and facilities that existed solely to make swimmers faster. Her parents sat with her at the kitchen table, going through scholarship offers with a mixture of pride and bewilderment. "Stanford is offering a full ride," her father said, looking at the letter like it might disappear if he stared too hard. "Full tuition, room and board, books, everything." "They want you," her mother added unnecessarily. "These coaches really want you." Maya looked at the letters spread across the table, each one representing a future she'd never dared to imagine in her first life. Stanford, the school she dreamed about when she was younger. Before she'd learned to keep her dreams small and manageable. "I'm going to take it," she said. "The Stanford offer." "Are you sure?" her mother asked. "It's so far away. And Texas has that Olympic-level coach you mentioned." "I'm sure." Maya picked up the Stanford letter, felt the weight of good paper and expensive printing. "This is what I want." That night, she called Coach Henderson to tell him the news. He laughed, a sound of pure delight. "I knew it," he said. "From that first day you showed up early before regionals, I knew you were going to do something special." "I couldn't have done it without you," Maya said, and meant it. In both lives, he'd been the steady presence, the one who believed in her potential even when she didn't believe in it herself. "Yes, you could have," he said. "But I'm glad I got to be part of the journey." After she hung up, Maya sat on her bed and looked at the bulletin board on her wall. It was covered now with medals and ribbons and photos from meets all over the country. There she was on a podium in Montreal, grinning despite having just swum the worst race of her season. There she was with her relay team after they'd broken the national record. There she was shaking hands with an Olympic gold medalist at a training camp, starstruck and trying not to show it. A different life. A better life. A life she'd built stroke by stroke, choice by choice, refusing to let anyone take it away from her. The future she'd lost once, but found again. The Olympic trials were held in July in a state-of-the-art facility in Omaha that smelled like chlorine and pressure. Maya was 19, so between her freshman and sophomore years at Stanford, ranked 8th in the nation in her event. The top 2 finishers would make the Olympic team. 3rd through 6th would be alternates. She needed to place 2nd or better. The preliminary rounds went smoothly. Maya qualified for semifinals without pushing too hard, saving her energy for when it mattered. The semifinals were tougher. She had to give everything to secure her spot in the finals, and she finished 3rd, just 0.3 seconds behind the leader. The night before finals, Maya lay in her hotel room and couldn't sleep. Her roommate, a backstroker named Jasmine, had gone to bed hours ago and was snoring softly in the other bed. The clock on the nightstand showed 2:47 a.m. In 5 hours, she'd need to be up, eating breakfast, beginning her pre-race routine, but sleep felt impossible. Her mind was racing, playing the race over and over in her head, analyzing every detail, looking for those tenths of a second that would mean the difference between making the team and going home as an alternate. She thought of her first life, of watching the Olympics on TV from her cubicle, eating sad desk lunch and wondering what it felt like to be that fast, that good, that lucky. She thought of all the years she'd spent wondering what if. If only. Maybe if things had been different. They were different now. She'd made them different. But what if it wasn't enough? What if she'd come all this way, worked this hard, fought this long, only to fall short in the moment that mattered most? Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily, who was back home in California with their parents. "Can't sleep either, huh? You're going to be amazing tomorrow." "You've trained for this your whole life. Both of your lives, actually, though I'm not supposed to know about that part. Love you. Go be an Olympian." Maya stared at the message. Both of your lives. Lily knew? Had she always known? Or had Maya let something slip over the years, some reference to the future that tipped her sister off? She typed back, "How long have you known?" The reply came instantly. "Since that day you asked me what I wanted. You looked at me like you'd seen a ghost. And you knew things you shouldn't have known. I'm not stupid, Maya. I'm just patient. Now go to sleep. You need rest for tomorrow." "I can't sleep." "Then meditate or whatever. But stop worrying. You've got this. Trust me. I've seen your future, and it's golden." Maya smiled despite herself, felt some of the tension in her chest unwind. She set down her phone and closed her eyes, focusing on her breathing the way she'd learned at a sports psychology workshop last year. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and steady. Like swimming, everything was about rhythm and breath and trusting your body to know what to do. She must have slept eventually, because the next thing she knew, her alarm was going off and pale dawn light was filtering through the hotel curtains. Game day, race day. The day that would determine whether she'd spent the last 5 years chasing an impossible dream or building a bridge to exactly where she was meant to be. The hours before the finals passed in a strange, suspended way, time moving both too fast and too slow. Breakfast with her coach, a brief warm-up in the practice pool, stretching and visualization, and the 100 small rituals that helped her feel ready. The other finalists moved through their own routines around her, each woman locked in her own bubble of focus and nerves. Maya knew most of them by now. There was Sarah Chen, the favorite, a 25-year-old who'd been training for this moment since she was 8. There was Melissa Rodriguez, the defending Olympic champion, swimming her last meet before retirement. There was Amy Liu, Maya's training partner at Stanford, her best friend, and her fiercest competition. 8 women, 2 spots. The math was simple and brutal. Swimmers, 5 minutes to finals call. Maya checked her goggles for the 100th time, adjusted her cap, tried to keep her hands from shaking. Her parents were in the stands somewhere, along with Lily and Coach Henderson and half her Stanford team. She couldn't think about them now. Couldn't think about anything except the water and the race and the hundreds of hours of training that had brought her to this moment. "Final swimmers, please report to the ready room." She walked there on legs that felt simultaneously like jelly and steel. The ready room was quiet, each swimmer wrapped in her own thoughts. Maya sat in her assigned chair and closed her eyes, picturing the race in her mind. The dive, the underwater pullout, the first stroke, the rhythm building, the water flowing past, the pain in her lungs and the strength in her muscles, the wall appearing, her hands stretching, touching. Swimmers, to the blocks. The roar of the crowd hit her as she walked onto the deck. The arena was packed, but thousands of people all focused on this one race. These 8 women, these 2 spots. Maya found her lane, lane 4, right in the middle. Sarah Chen was in lane 5, Melissa Rodriguez in lane 6. She climbed onto the block. This was it. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd chosen and fought for and refused to give up. It all came down to the next 2 minutes. "Swimmers, take your mark." Maya bent into position, and suddenly she was calm. Her heart rate slowed. Her breathing steadied. She'd done this 1,000 times before. She knew what to do. Her body knew what to do. All she had to do was swim. The buzzer sounded. She flew. The entry was perfect. Barely a ripple. She pulled into her underwater dolphin kick, 5 powerful strokes before surfacing. First breath, pull, reach. The rhythm came automatically, her body moving through the sequence without thought, pure muscle memory and training and will. 50 meters. She was in third behind Sarah and Melissa. Good. That was fine. She had time. 75 meters. She started to push, increasing her tempo, each stroke pulling her forward. Sarah was still ahead, but Melissa was fading slightly. Maya could feel the gap closing. 100 meters. Halfway. Her lungs were burning, her shoulders screaming, but she ignored it all. There was only the water, the wall ahead, the women on either side of her. 125 meters. She pulled even with Melissa, then passed her. Sarah was still ahead, but only by half a body length. Maya could catch her. Would catch her. 150 meters. She could see Sarah in her peripheral vision. See her arm pulling through the water in sync with Maya's own strokes. They were matched. Stroke for stroke, breath for breath. 175 meters. The final push. Maya gave it everything she had left. All her strength, all her training, all the determination she'd carried through 2 lifetimes. The water rushed past. The wall appeared. Reach, stretch, touch. She hit the wall and surfaced, gasping, and looked at the scoreboard through blurry, chlorinated eyes. Lane 4, Chen, Maya, 206, 83 lane 5. Chen, Sarah, 206, 79 second place, by 4/100ths of a second. She'd made the Olympic team. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She'd done it. After everything, the sacrifices, the early mornings, the races won and lost, the years of training, so the choice to fight for what she wanted instead of accepting what others planned for her, she'd actually done it. She was going to the Olympics. The other finalists were congratulating each other, but Maya barely heard them over the roaring in her ears. She looked up at the stands and found her family immediately. Her parents on their feet, crying and cheering. Lily jumping up and down, waving both arms. Coach Henderson with his hands pressed to his face like he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. She'd made them proud, but more importantly, she'd made herself proud. Amy Lou pulled her into a hug, then Melissa, then Sarah. "Welcome to the team," Sarah said, grinning. "Hope you're ready for the craziest experience of your life." "I've been ready for 5 years," Maya said. Actually, more like 25. But who's counting? The medal ceremony was a blur of flashing cameras and the national anthem and the feeling of a gold medal. First place in the finals, even if Sarah had won overall. Heavy and cool around her neck. The post-race interviews were worse. Journalists asking the same questions over and over. How did it feel? What was going through her mind? What did this mean to her? How could she explain that it meant everything? That it meant vindication and redemption, and the proof that second chances were real, that you could rewrite your story if you were willing to fight for it? She gave them the standard answers. Something about hard work and dedication and being honored to represent her country. The words felt hollow compared to the truth roiling in her chest, but they were the words athletes were supposed to say. And she'd learned to play the game. Later, after the chaos had died down and she'd finally escaped to her hotel room, Maya sat on the bed with her phone and scrolled through messages. Congratulations from teammates, from coaches, from friends she hadn't talked to in years. Her Stanford coach had sent a text that just said "knew it" in all caps. Jessica Tran had sent a gif of someone doing a celebratory dance. And from Lily, "You did it. You actually did it. I'm so proud of you I could burst. Can't wait to watch you in Tokyo. Bring home another medal, okay? Love you forever. Your favorite sister. Also your only sister, but still." Maya typed back, "Thank you for knowing and never saying anything. For letting me figure it out. For being amazing. That's what sisters are for." Well, that and borrowing clothes without asking. No, which I totally did last week. Sorry, not sorry. Maya laughed, the sound surprising her with its lightness. She'd been carrying the weight of 2 lifetimes for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be simply happy, to enjoy a moment without the shadow of regret or missed opportunity hanging over it. She was going to the Olympics. She was 19 years old with her whole future ahead of her, bright and full of possibility. And she'd earned it. Every stroke, every early morning, every choice to keep going when it would have been easier to quit. The path hadn't been easy. It had required sacrifice and stubbornness, and a willingness to fight for what she wanted, even when the people she loved most didn't understand. But it had been worth it. Worth every moment of doubt and pain and exhaustion. Because this feeling of accomplishment, of having chased a dream and caught it, was what being alive was supposed to feel like. Not settling, not compromising, not wondering what if. Living. The Olympics themselves were a whirlwind of ceremony and competition and pressure so intense, it felt like swimming through concrete. Maya qualified for the finals in the 200 butterfly, then swam the race of her life and finished 5th. Not a medal, but an Olympic final at 19 years old. Room to grow, potential for the next games. Lily flew to Tokyo to watch, using money she'd saved from her part-time job at a cafe. She sat in the stands with their parents and waved a homemade sign, and when Maya found them after her race, Lily hugged her so hard she could barely breathe. "You were incredible," Lily said into her shoulder. "I mean it. 5th in the world. Do you know how insane that is?" "I wanted a medal," Maya admitted. It was true. She'd trained for gold, visualized the podium, imagined the national anthem playing while she stood in the center. "You will," Lily said with absolute certainty. "Next time. You're only 19. You have so much time." Time? The word echoed in Maya's head. She had time. More time than she'd had in her first life. Time she'd fought for and earned and refused to waste. 4 more years until Paris. 8 until LA. Maybe more beyond that, if her body held up and her passion didn't fade. "Yeah," Maya said, pulling back to look at her sister. Lily was 16 now, tall and strong from years of volleyball, with calluses on her hands from setting and serving. "Happy. So clearly, obviously happy. We both have time." That night, after the closing ceremony and the celebrations and the exhausted collapse into her hotel bed, Maya lay awake and thought about the 2 lives she'd lived. The first one, gray and diminished, full of regret and quiet desperation. The second one, hard won and brilliant, built on choices she'd fought for and dreams she'd refused to surrender. They were both real, in a way. Both part of who she was. The first life had taught her what mattered. The second life had given her the chance to actually pursue it. She thought about Lily, too. In the first life, her sister had become a piano teacher who played less and less, until eventually the music stopped entirely, replaced by the demands of work and family, and the slow grinding down of passion into routine. In this life, Lily played volleyball in college, majored in sports medicine, was planning to become a physical therapist. She still played piano sometimes, for fun, for herself, without the weight of expectation turning joy into obligation. They'd both gotten second chances in the end. Maya's was just more obvious. Her phone buzzed. A text from Coach Henderson, who'd stayed back in California. "Saw the race. You were beautiful out there. Already thinking about training for Paris? We're going to get you that gold medal." Maya smiled and typed back, "I know we will." Because she did know. Not with the certainty of someone who'd lived the future, but with the confidence of someone who'd learned that the future was something you built, not something that happened to you. She'd proven that already? She'd taken the worst moment of her first life, the moment her parents had asked her to quit swimming, and transformed it into the foundation of something better. The Olympics weren't the end. They were just the beginning. Paris came faster than Maya expected. 4 years of training and competing and pushing her body to new limits. She went to World Championships and won bronze. She broke the American record in the 200 butterfly. She graduated from Stanford with a degree in psychology and a postgraduate plan that involved nothing but swimming for the next few years. Her parents came to every major meet they could afford to attend. They'd learned over the years to support both daughters equally, splitting their time and resources and enthusiasm between Maya's swimming and Lily's volleyball and physical therapy studies. The favoritism that had defined Maya's first life never materialized in this one. Or maybe it had, briefly, but Maya's refusal to accept it had forced them all to reconsider, to rebuild, to find a better way. At the Paris Olympic trials, Maya won the 200 butterfly by more than a second, a statement victory that established her as the favorite for gold. The pressure was immense. Journalists wanted to know if she was ready, if she thought she could win, if the weight of expectation bothered her. She gave them the same answer every time. "I'm not swimming against expectations. I'm swimming against the clock and the other women in the pool. Everything else is just noise." It was something Coach Henderson had told her years ago, and it had become her mantra. The noise didn't matter. Not the rankings or the predictions or the commentators analyzing her every stroke. What mattered was the race, the water, the work she'd put in to be ready for this moment. Lily flew to Paris with their parents. She was 22 now, newly graduated, about to start a job at a sports medicine clinic in San Diego. They met for dinner the night before Maya's preliminary heat at a small bistro near the Olympic Village. Nervous? Lily asked, stealing a fry from Maya's plate. Terrified, Maya admitted, but also ready. You're going to win, Lily said it like a fact, like the sun rising or gravity working. I've always known you were going to win. Maya thought about that, about Lily knowing or suspecting about the rebirth, about the second chance that had allowed them both to choose better paths. They'd never talked about it directly, had maintained the fiction that Maya was just an unusually driven teenager who'd gotten very good at swimming very quickly. But sometimes, in quiet moments like this, the truth hung between them like a held breath. Thank you, Maya said, for everything, for being brave enough to quit piano when you didn't love it, for showing me that it was okay to fight for what I wanted. You showed me that, Lily corrected. That day you asked me what I wanted. That was the first time anyone had ever asked. You gave me permission to choose my own life. She reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. So, yeah, you're going to win, because you already won. We both did. The preliminary heats went smoothly. Maya qualified first, swimming just fast enough to conserve energy for the finals. The semifinals were harder. The field was stacked with incredibly talented swimmers, women who'd been training for this their whole lives. But Maya pushed through and qualified second, setting herself up perfectly for the finals. The night before the race, she dreamed of her first life. In the dream, she was 35 again, sitting in her cubicle, watching the Olympics on a grainy stream on her work computer. The swimmer in lane 4, Maya couldn't quite see her face, was surging toward the wall, arms pulling through the water with mechanical precision. The crowd was roaring. The commentators were breathless with excitement. Dream Maya wanted to see who won, but her boss appeared and asked her to file some reports, and by the time she looked back at the screen, the race was over. She'd missed it. Missed everything. Missed her own life. She woke up gasping, tangled in hotel sheets, her heart racing like she'd just finished a sprint set. The clock showed 4:23 a.m. In a few hours, she'd swim the most important race of her life. 2 lives, really. She couldn't go back to sleep, so she got up and did her stretching routine, then meditated, then called her mother because she needed to hear a familiar voice. Maya, honey, it's so early. Are you okay? I'm fine. I needed to hear your voice. A pause. Then, you're going to be wonderful today. We're so proud of you. Not because of the medals or the records or any of that. Because of who you are. Because you knew what you wanted and you fought for it. That takes real courage. The words cracked something open in Maya's chest. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Now try to get a little more rest. You have a big day ahead? After she hung up, Maya sat in the dark hotel room and felt the full weight of what she was about to do. This was it. The culmination of 25 years of desire and 5 years of dedicated training. 2 lifetimes converging on this one moment. She was ready. The La Defense Arena was packed with nearly 18,000 spectators, the noise level so intense Maya could feel it vibrating in her chest as she walked onto the deck. The 8 finalists took their places behind their blocks, and Maya allowed herself one moment to look up at the stands to find her family in the sea of faces. There. 3rd row, just off center. Her parents, Lily, Coach Henderson. All of them on their feet already before the race had even started. All of them believing in her. Swimmers, behind the blocks. Maya stepped up, shook out her arms. I felt the familiar pre-race adrenaline singing through her veins. The other finalists were doing their own rituals, stretching, adjusting caps, bouncing on their toes. Sarah Chen was in lane 5 again, still Maya's main competition, but there were new threats too. A Russian swimmer who'd broken the European record last month, an Australian who'd come out of nowhere with incredible times this season. 8 women, 1 gold medal. Swimmers! Take your mark, Maya climbed onto the block for the last time. Every other race, every other competition, every early morning and late night and moment of doubt and pain and triumph, it had all been building to this. The race she dreamed about for 25 years. She bent into starting position, felt her muscles coil with potential energy. The stadium went quiet. Or maybe it was just that Maya's focus narrowed so completely that all she could hear was her own heartbeat, steady and strong. The buzzer sounded. She launched herself into the air, and for a moment, one perfect, suspended moment, she was flying. Just like in her first life, when she was 11 years old and won her first gold medal and felt briefly like anything was possible. Then the water caught her, cold and familiar and exactly right. The race unfolded like a prayer, like poetry, like everything beautiful Maya had ever known about swimming distilled into 2 minutes and 6 seconds of absolute effort. She hit her turns perfectly, timed her breathing exactly right, found the rhythm that had eluded her in Tokyo but came as naturally as breathing now. 75 meters in, she was in second, right behind the Russian swimmer. 100 meters, they were even. 125, Maya was ahead by half a body length. The last 50 meters, she gave it everything. All her strength, all her technique, all the love and pain and determination she'd carried through 2 lifetimes. The water rushed past, her lungs burned, her shoulders screamed. But she didn't slow down, didn't ease up, didn't give anything less than absolutely everything she had. The wall appeared. She reached for it with arms that had logged millions of meters over the years, with hands that had touched 1,000 walls, but never one that mattered this much. Her fingers hit the touchpad. She surfaced, gasping, and looked at the scoreboard. Lane 4, Chen, Maya. 2:04.68, WR world record, Olympic gold medal, first place. The roar of the crowd was deafening, but Maya barely heard it over the sound of her own sob of relief and joy and pure distilled triumph. She'd done it. After everything. After dying and being reborn. After fighting for the right to swim. After years of training and sacrifice and refusing to give up, she'd actually done it. Sarah Chen was suddenly in her lane, pulling her into a hug, saying something Maya couldn't hear over the noise. The Russian swimmer was there too, and the Australian, all of them sharing this moment of athletic excellence, even though only one of them was going home with gold. Maya looked up at the stands and saw her family going absolutely wild. Lily jumping up and down and screaming, their mother crying, their father trying to take pictures with shaking hands, Coach Henderson with his hands raised in victory like he'd just won the race himself. And in that moment, Maya understood what all of this had really been about. Not the medals or the records or the recognition, not even the redemption of a life unlived. It was about choice, about refusing to let other people's limitations become her own, about loving something enough to fight for it even when the fight was hard, about believing that she deserved to pursue her dreams just as much as anyone else, about being brave enough to choose herself. The medal ceremony was a blur of tears and the national anthem and the feeling of gold, heavy and perfect, hanging around her neck. Standing on the top of the podium, looking out at the sea of faces and cameras and flags, Maya felt something she'd never felt in her first life. Complete. Not because she'd won a gold medal, though that was amazing, but because she'd won it on her own terms. And after making choices that honored who she really was. She'd built this life deliberately, consciously, refusing to settle for anything less than what she knew she was capable of. She'd chosen swimming. And in choosing it, she'd chosen herself. The years after Paris were good ones. Maya won more medals at World Championships, broke more records, became one of the most dominant butterflyers of her generation. She competed at the LA Olympics at 27 and won gold again, this time with her nephew in the stands, Lily's son, barely 2 years old, waving a tiny American flag without any understanding of what he was watching, but excited because everyone else was excited. Lily had married a volleyball player she'd met in college, a man who made her laugh and supported her career, and never once suggested she should have stuck with piano instead. They were happy in a way that seemed effortless, but Maya knew was the result of both of them choosing partners who saw them clearly, who loved them for who they actually were rather than who they might become. Their parents were older now, grayer, moving a little slower, but they'd become better grandparents than they'd been parents, more patient, less focused on achievement and potential, content to let their grandson be whoever he wanted to be. Maya sometimes wondered if they remembered those early years differently, if the timeline had shifted in their memories too. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they'd all grown, all learned, all become better versions of themselves. Coach Henderson retired when Maya was 28, after 4 decades of coaching swimmers to national and Olympic glory. At his retirement party, he pulled Maya aside and said, I've trained a lot of talented kids over the years, but you were different. You didn't just want to be good. You needed it. Like swimming was the only thing keeping you tethered to the earth." "It was," Maya said. It was the closest she'd ever come to telling him the truth. "For a long time it was." "Well, I'm glad I got to be part of your journey." He smiled, the same smile he'd given her that morning before regionals when she was 14 and terrified and determined. "You made it all worthwhile." Maya retired from competitive swimming at 30 after the LA Olympics. She'd accomplished everything she'd set out to do, and more. Her body was tired, her shoulders worn down from millions of strokes. But her heart was full. She became a coach herself, working with young swimmers who reminded her of who she'd been, hungry and talented, and desperate to prove something to the world, or maybe just to themselves. She tried to be for them what Coach Henderson had been for her, someone who believed in their potential, who pushed them to be better, who understood that sometimes people needed swimming the way others needed air. One of her swimmers was a 14-year-old girl named Jennifer, quiet and intense, with a butterfly stroke that made Maya's heart ache with recognition. Jennifer's parents wanted her to quit and focus on her academics. They thought swimming was a waste of time and money, thought she should be preparing for a real career instead of chasing athletic dreams. That Maya sat them down and told them, with all the authority of an Olympic gold medalist and world record holder, that they were wrong. That talent like Jennifer's was rare and precious and deserved to be nurtured, that they would regret it for the rest of their lives if they forced their daughter to give up something she loved. "I've seen both sides of this," Maya said, not entirely lying. "I've seen what happens when talented kids get the support they need, and I've seen what happens when they don't. Trust me when I say that choosing the second option will haunt all of you." She couldn't tell them about her first life, about the decades of regret and wondering what if. Couldn't explain that she'd literally lived through the alternative timeline and knew exactly how it ended. But she could use her own success as evidence, and as proof that supporting a child's passion wasn't a waste, but an investment in their happiness and fulfillment. Jennifer's parents relented. The girl kept swimming, kept getting faster, kept chasing the same dream Maya had once chased. Whether she'd make it all the way to the Olympics, Maya didn't know. But at least she'd have the chance to try. At least she wouldn't spend her life wondering, what if? That was enough. On Maya's 35th birthday, the age she'd been when she died in her first life, Lily threw her a surprise party. It was held at their parents' house, the same apartment they'd lived in when Maya was 14, though it had been renovated and updated over the years. All the important people in Maya's life were there. Her parents, her former teammates, Coach Henderson, Jessica Tran, some of her Stanford friends, a few of her current swimmers. The dining room table was covered with food, the walls decorated with photos from Maya's career, medals and podiums and celebratory hugs, and that one shot of her breaking the world record in Paris, arms raised in triumph, face split in a grin of pure joy. "Make a wish," Lily said, holding out a cake with 35 candles flickering in the dim light. Maya closed her eyes. In her first life, she'd wished for things she couldn't have. To be younger, to be faster, to have a second chance. In this life, she had everything she'd ever wished for and more. So she wished for something simple, that everyone she loved would be happy, that they'd all keep choosing themselves, keep fighting for what mattered, keep believing that life was something you built rather than something that happened to you. She blew out the candles. Everyone cheered. Later, after the cake had been eaten and the presents opened and most of the guests had gone home, Maya and Lily sat on the apartment balcony, looking out over the city. It was the same view Maya had looked at when she was 14, 15, 16, except the skyline had changed, new buildings reaching toward the stars. "Do you ever think about it?" Lily asked quietly. "About how things were supposed to go?" Maya knew immediately what she meant. The first life, the one that almost was. "Sometimes," Maya admitted. "Less than I used to. It feels more like a dream now, or a movie I watched once." "Do you think you'll ever tell anyone? Write a book or something?" Maya laughed. "Who would believe it?" Former Olympian claims she lived through 2 lifetimes. Here's how she managed to win gold medals the second time around. They'd think I was crazy. Maybe, Lily leaned back in her chair, or maybe they'd think you were lucky to get a second chance. to get it right. I was lucky, Maya said, but I also worked my ass off. The second chance only mattered because I was willing to fight for it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city lights twinkle in the darkness. Somewhere out there were pools being cleaned for tomorrow's practices, swimmers lying awake nervous about upcoming competitions, parents trying to decide whether to support their children's dreams or guide them toward more practical paths. Maya hoped they chose support, hoped they chose to believe in their kids the way Coach Henderson had believed in her, the way her parents had eventually learned to believe in both their daughters. But if they didn't, she hoped the kids would fight anyway, would refuse to settle, would choose themselves even when it was hard, would build the lives they actually wanted rather than accepting the lives other people planned for them. Because that was the real lesson of her 2 lifetimes. You only got one shot at being alive. Most people only got one anyway. You might as well spend it doing something you love, being someone you're proud of, chasing dreams that make your heart race and your hands shake and your whole body come alive with purpose. You might as well choose yourself. Hey, Maya, Lily said softly. Thank you. For what? For showing me it was okay to quit piano? For fighting for your swimming, even when it would have been easier to give up? For being my sister. She reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. You changed my life. Both of our lives, really. You changed everything. Maya squeezed back, felt tears prick her eyes. We changed each other. That's what sisters do. They sat together on the balcony as the night deepened, 2 women who'd been given the gift of choice and had used it to build lives they loved. The past was behind them. Both pasts. The one that happened and the one that didn't. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and promise and the knowledge that they'd be okay, whatever came next. Because they'd learned the most important lesson life had to teach, that you were the author of your own story, that every choice mattered, that it was never too late to change direction, to fight for what you wanted, to become who you were meant to be, that sometimes, if you were very lucky and very determined, you got a second chance. And if you were smart, you didn't waste it. On a Tuesday morning in early spring, Maya stood at the edge of a pool, not as a swimmer this time, but as a coach. Her 14-year-old student, Jennifer, was on the starting block, preparing for a practice race. The girl looked nervous, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on the water below. Hey, Maya called. Remember what I told you? Jennifer glanced back. Trust my training. And there's always another race. This isn't the end of anything. Good. Maya checked her stopwatch. Now, show me what you've got. The buzzer sounded. Jennifer dove in, and her entry was clean, her first strokes powerful and smooth. Maya watched her swim and saw herself at that age, hungry and driven and burning with the need to prove something. She saw all the mornings she'd woken up before dawn, all the afternoons spent in the pool instead of with friends, all the choices she'd made that had seemed impossible at the time, but had led to everything she'd become. Jennifer touched the wall. Maya clicked the stopwatch. 2:18. 5, she called. Personal best by 3 seconds. The girl surfaced, gasping, her face transforming from focus to pure delight. Really? Really, you're getting faster, Jennifer. Keep this up and you'll be swimming at regionals next year. Maybe even nationals eventually. Do you think I could make it to the Olympics? The question was asked tentatively, like Jennifer was afraid of wanting something too big, too impossible. Maya thought about all the things she could say, all the warnings about how hard it was, how unlikely, how many talented swimmers never made it past regionals or state, all the cautionary tales about dedication and sacrifice, and the very real possibility of failure. But what she said was, if you want it badly enough and you're willing to work for it, then yes. Absolutely yes. Because that was the truth. Not that success was guaranteed. It never was. But that it was possible. That with the right combination of talent and training and sheer stubborn determination, even the most impossible dreams could become reality. That sometimes life gave you a second chance, and sometimes you just had to be brave enough to take it. Jennifer grinned, that same ear-to-ear grin Maya remembered wearing at 11 years old, standing on a podium with her first gold medal. The grin that said anything was possible, that the future was bright, that dreams were meant for chasing. Okay, the girl said, then let's do it. Let's make me an Olympian. Maya smiled and checked her stopwatch, ready to time the next interval. The pool stretched out before them, chlorinated and perfect, full of promise. The morning sun streamed through the windows, painting ripples of light across the water's surface. "All right," Maya said. "From the top, 5 more 200s, and I want you to hold that pace on every single one. Ready?" Jennifer climbed back onto the block, and Maya felt something settle in her chest. A sense of rightness, of purpose, of knowing that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not swimming anymore, but still part of the sport she loved. Still helping others chase their dreams the way she'd chased hers. The buzzer sounded, Jennifer flew, and Maya watched, stopwatch in hand, heart full, thinking, this is what second chances look like. Not just for me, but for everyone. A chance to try again, to be better, to choose the life you actually want instead of settling for the one you're given. A chance to swim, a chance to fly, a chance to be free,